Can everybody hear me? Let me know if you hear my voice. That would be a good indicator. Sergey, welcome. We have Sergey here. I'm going to wait till more people arrive. Simon, Hollywood. Nice. Nathaniel. Wait, hold on. No, sweet. We have a lot of people. Terry. Dan. What's up, Dan? I just talked to you on Facebook. By the way, I did one on Facebook earlier, and I just want to do one on YouTube. Facebook was like a last minute thing. It was just a panic kind of mode because I tried to do one on YouTube and it just didn't work out. I had a whole system set up and I'm going back to Google Hangout. So I'm sorry, guys. I'll try the more examples to show, but I'm going to start here in a second. We're going to talk about the same thing we talked about in on the Facebook live feed. So if you were there, you're probably going to see the same stuff again. Zach, welcome. Who else do we have here? Wow, a lot of people. Dave, Anus, Charlie. I know Charlie. He's from Southern California. What's up, Charlie? Can everybody hear my voice? Make sure that you guys can hear my voice. It's probably. I'm going to wait a couple more minutes till everybody arrives. Daniel from France. Daniel, love your tutorials. Even though they're in another language, I love them. A lot of people joining in. Wow. Welcome, everybody. We're going to start here shortly. I'm just waiting for more people to arrive. Again, I told everyone I was going to go live at 1 o'clock. And something happened. It didn't work out. Then we went to Facebook, and it was a last minute thing. And now we're back on YouTube. So we have Karen, East Hampton. Nice, Karen. That's awesome. Stupovsky. I'm gonna mispronounce a lot of names. Mauricio from Mexico. I'm sorry, man. I'm terrible with pronouncing names. All right, we're gonna Ukraine. What time is it in Ukraine right now? And what's your name, by the way? All right, Rick. What's up? No vlog today. I guess you don't have a vlog today. I'm just kidding. Zach, welcome from California. That's early. Keith Bradley, the guy that I confused for my coworker. I know you well. Eduard. Oh, that's okay, from Kiev, Ukraine. Roberto from Mexico. Tiger from Toronto. Gabriel. Wow, a lot of people. Is it Gabrielle or did I? Gabrielle. I'm so sorry. Pronouncing names is not my strong quality. I'm going to apologize. Christos. Nice. Welcome. I know you. So you're new After Effects. So how many of you guys are comfortable with the expressions? By the way, we're going to begin here shortly. So if you just now arriving, you're not late, you're early. So don't worry, we're going to start here. Edgar from Mexico. Jess. Yes. Oh, yes. I'm sorry, man. Yes. That's a cool name. I like it. Dave. All right. Dan Beltran again. Cool, Dan. By the way, Dan has been on a podcast with us, and the podcast is not out yet. It's going to come out soon. Vladimir, my twin brother Vladimir, is going to be doing that, and it's going to be out soon. I've already heard it. It's pretty cool. Dan is super talented. We're going to have many more others trying to get other people to get on. All right. I think we're going to start here. Danny, welcome. There's a lot of laughter going on. All right, I'm going to wait one more minute, and then we're going to start. Everybody's doing okay? All right. Craig, welcome. Where are you from, Craig? It's so cool to see everybody from different parts of the world. And I know for some it's kind of late. That's awesome. Roberto, ready? All right. Well, here we go. So we're going to talk about obviously common mistakes that we make sometimes when working with the expressions. And it's not something too crazy as far as like it's something I came up this morning. So it's not, I didn't think about this forever. So it's just some stuff that I found that was difficult for me starting out, just confused me. And I'm gonna go over that a bit. And if you have any questions anytime, just stop me, write a question. My twin brother Vladimir stuff. So he's gonna tell me when I need to answer stuff. Venezuela, nice. So anyway, so I'm gonna start out by talking about debugging in After Effects. So we're just to have a clean sheet here. And a lot of times when I work with the expressions, tend to do the following. So I kind of like to see things visually because when you, let's say, I'm going to bring in something in here. Let's do like a shape layer. That's an ugly one, but it's okay. I think it'll do. Let's change some stuff here. Let's do 300 by 300. Okay, so we have something like this, right? And then I'm going to go to position or maybe like rotation. So a lot of times we're only seeing the final result here. And it's kind of tough sometimes to see what's going on. And a lot of times you have to see something visually. And hey, I still see it. I'm going to like squirrel. I see all these comments. So I'm going to be distracted a bit. All right. So a lot of times we only see this. And sometimes you want to see stuff visually. So I use this like just a text layer for debugging purposes. So for example, I'm just going to say ukramedia.com for right now. So we have some text. And then in here, if you go to source layer of this text layer, so I'm going to solo that up a little bit. Okay. So in here, usually where I try my expressions, for example, you can do time, you want to make sure it's all lowercase, times 100. So even though this is our expression, you can see it visually in here. So it's kind of nice to see things visually. So I use text anytime I'm confused with stuff. I just kind of type it out here and see the result here. And I can kind of isolate certain things. And it kind of visually makes sense for me. Obaida, I can't pronounce stuff. I'm sorry. I love you too, man. Thanks so much. Anyway, so I hope that's making sense. So debugging, it's basically checking for things. I know they do that in JavaScript, but as you all know, expressions is JavaScript based. So if you're trying to learn JavaScript, it's a lot of web related. So it's kind of tough to apply that to After Effects because it's, even though it's the same language, it's applied differently and it kind of can confuse you. And a lot of times people that teach it are, you know, that come from the web and application based stuff, and it's kind of hard to relate. So debugging, I kind of went over that. That's just kind of the basic for right now. I have a list that I want to go down the list here shortly, but I just want to make sure everyone's here. I think we're ready. All right, so the first one I want to talk about is reserved words for variables. For example, a lot of times when you create a variable, and I'm going to use this debugging system for right now. So in here, I'm going to say, let's do x equals 5 plus, I don't know, 10, basic math, nothing to freak you guys out. And we'll say x, right? You don't even have to say that. I think it just automatically, yeah. So this variable, and we kind of store stuff in there. And if you know what variables are, it's basically kind of like a grouping way of things in After Effects or with the expressions. It's kind of like just think of it as pre-comp. Instead of writing stuff out, you kind of just group it in here and you can call it out later somewhere else. You can say x plus and whatever number you want, like 2. So it's going to use all that plus 2. So essentially that's what it is. I mean, the basic stuff. So it's a variable. Obviously, x is good, but there's a list in After Effects or in expressions or JavaScript, I guess, in general, that you shouldn't, there are certain words you should not use at all. They're called reserved words right here. And I have a list. I'm going to pull this up. And you can Google it, just Google JavaScript reserved words if you can't see this very well. I know it's kind of, well, let me do. You can see some of the words in here. You can, obviously, you can do, catch, any of these key terms. Don't use it as a variable. So for example, I know I'm tempted a lot of times to use, where is it? There was one that I kind of used before and it kind of gave me a headache and I couldn't figure out what happened. Like a null, for example. Null static, I think, is one of them, static. So here's an example. If you do this, so we know that this variable is working, but if you say static and let go of it, it's going to give you an error. And a lot of times with our, simple minds, we'll be looking at this and we'll be wondering like, what the heck is going on? Everything's looking right. Why is it giving me, give me this problem? Like what's going on? You can do just null, maybe same thing. And that's because of this. And so a lot of times just make sure you're mindful of those words. And a lot of times you know what they are. So that's a big one, I think. Keep in mind, again, if you want this list, just Google reserved words, keywords for JavaScript, and you'll find it. So am I making sense so far? Let me see. You guys have any questions so far? Thanks, Anna. Spasiba. I do speak Russian, so spasiba. Огромное спасибо. All right, so we're good so far. I didn't lose anybody. I think I'm on simple stuff, but trust me, getting this thing is important, because if how many times I remember so many times, having something like this to where you have this big expression and just feeling frustrated. You're like, what is going on? Everything seems right, but then it's not working. And why isn't it working? And a lot of times it's something stupid like this. All right. Yes, got it. Henry, thanks, man. All right, so let's move on to the second one. While we're on the subject of variables, let's talk about another thing about variables. So for example, I'm just going to use Sergey Proknowski. Make sure I spelled it right. So right now, this is a variable. Again, it's just a made up thing. Doesn't mean much, but it does work. It's a variable, even though it's long. But here's what happens when you create a space between them. Like if you do just a space, the same thing happens. You can't do that. So that's one thing you make sure you're mindful of. Don't put any space in your variable. That's important. Keep it together. A lot of times people use like a small, like a small letter, big letter type deal, lowercase, all that stuff. But another thing that I found is if you use hyphens. So you can do Sergey hyphen Proknowski, and you would think that would work, but the same thing. Don't do that. You can use underscore, and you're fine. But hyphens just doesn't like it. Don't use that. So that's number 2, variable. So I think so far we've gone over using keywords or reserved words. Don't do that. Make sure you're mindful of that. And then this one's using spaces and hyphens in your variables. So how are we doing so far? Everyone's okay? All good? 4 a.m. Wow, you are up early. Azar, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Tex, welcome. All right, Mike. These broadcasts. I probably will. We'll see. I know we're trying to encourage more people to tune in. So we're wanting to do more like as you come. Maybe like we'll make it available for 24 hours, and then you can maybe, I don't know. We'll see. So Vladimir said we're not deleting them. Okay, well then he answered the question. All right, so let's move on. So far, I think we're good. Everyone's caught up. No one's having any questions. I think we're good. Using reserved words are variables. Yep. Well, you'd be surprised though. Some of these are like null static. I mean, there's a few others that would get me here and there. All right, so let's go to number 3. I think, what is it? So now we're talking about actually, yeah, let's talk about this thing called expression control. So if you go to any over here, like if you go to effects, I'm right clicking here, but you can go to effects. But if you go there and go to expression controls, we have these controls that we use with the expressions a lot. Like a slider is probably the most popular one. So here's a slider. And the thing about this is always be in the habit of, when you attach them like this, adding period value. I know obviously it works fine. I mean, it works fine without it. Like this, it's working fine. And I've used that a lot until you do more complex stuff, and then you kind of start running into problems. I'm going to show you here an example. Like I showed you guys this yesterday. Those of you that tuned in, it's going to be part of our course on expressions. And by the way, if you're just now tuning in, we are going to have an expressions course coming up here shortly. I think March 1st is our pre-release date, and we'll go over from the basics, beginning to the end kind of thing. We're going to go over a lot of JavaScript, a lot of useful expressions, and all that stuff. Again, I don't want to bore you guys with the information. I've talked about this many times, but I showed you guys this thing yesterday, and here's an example. This Y-gap offset. It's a variable that's pointing to this slider right here. And as you can see, I added period value at the end of it. Now, you didn't have to do that before. I mean, obviously, a lot of you probably don't. But watch this. When I get rid of it, it's giving me an error. So for some things, you have to have it. And if you're not aware of that, everything looks legit, right? Everything looks like it's supposed to be according to the books. And then you come across this and you're like, what is going on? Right? And it's just as simple as value. But if you don't know it, you probably don't know you probably just give up. But adding that to your sliders, not just sliders, but any expression controls, is probably a good thing, a good habit to have. So does that make sense? We're good? Yeah. Let me see what you guys are up to. Thanks, Tiger. All right. So we have more people show up. Nice. Marvin, welcome. Marvin, you're on time. Welcome. All right. So we are doing good so far. So again, I want to repeat myself. Make sure you put periods at the end. I'm going to go over here. So make sure adding period value at the end of like controls. I think it's a good habit to have personally. All right, let's go to the next one. So the next one is probably has to do with the controls here, like the slider controls or any of these expression controls that we have here, like angle, 3D point, all that stuff. When you create stuff, especially templates or things like VideoHive, anything templates that are going to be used in other countries, in other languages, it's always a good habit to rename your. So I always try to rename it. For example, a slider, like if this is, controlling your rotation, you would just say rotation. Or color, all that stuff. So make sure you rename them, because if you don't, it kind of gives it, for example, if it opens up on a Spanish computer, it will be, this angle control will be in Spanish. And so you can throw off your expression. So it can create some problems. I also do that on shape layers here. Like if you notice, when you create a shape layer, it kind of has a generic rectangle here. I'm always like paranoid about it. I even changed that to something else, something more custom, because once it's custom, it's going to assume it's custom, and it's not going to try to translate it or anything like that. So I'm always aware of that. And I know there are like scripts you can get that will make things universal, but so far, we sell products like modular third kits and all those control it, all these scripts, and so far I never had to use this, like any kind of external scripts to make it universal. And just doing this kind of stuff works well. A lot of people open them up in other countries and they don't seem to have any problems. So it's a good habit to have for sure. How are we doing? Hey, we have the same people returning. All right, everyone's doing okay? I'm gonna wait a little bit. Any questions? So you guys are okay? Stream today. I'm doing okay. What is your name on that marketplace? I'm not sure what you mean by that. You talking about the scripts? It's at ukramedia.com/shop. Anyway, you might be talking to somebody else. All right, I'm gonna go back to here. All right, so the next thing we're gonna talk about, obviously we talked about renaming expression controls, but now let's talk about applying things to two-dimensional properties or 2 or 3-dimensional properties. For example, I have this for a second. I'm going to solo this one, select that one, and let's do position, rotation for a second. All right, something like this. So right now, let's say I wanted to create an expression for 2-dimensional property. So obviously it's not 1-dimensional, it has 2 dimensions. So I'm going to alt-click over here and then just type something like time times 100. And obviously you see there's an error, and that's because you can't, that will work on rotation. So if you do this rotation, the same thing, it's giving you, no problem, it's working fine. But for two-dimensional properties, you have to be more direct with what you're doing. So in other words, you have to be specific which property you want that to affect. So a lot of times what I do, for example, time times 100, obviously, whoops, not 8, let's do times. Obviously that's not working, but you'd have to tell it which dimension. So you'd have to put it in what I guess square brackets. So you'd have to open up a square bracket and then comma. So right here, the first one is going to be that right here. So it's going to affect that property right here. And then the second, whatever we put in here, is going to affect there. So if you can just leave it at 0 and then close your square bracket, you can see that it's going to start out, that number is moving, but that one's staying static. Makes sense? So you have to be more specific. A lot of times, what I do, I hardly ever do it this way. What I do, I just kind of specify things more like X, you're going to be like, I use variables a lot. And I'll say X, you're going to be, or let's do time times 100. And then Y, you're going to be value and index 0 or 1. And what that means, give me the value of that property. So index, it's like a list. So it's going to start, it starts at 0. So 0, 1. So I'm telling that Y to be value and 1, which is 0, 1, that one right there. And I know it sounds complicated, but if you see square brackets, it's an array basically. I'm going to talk about it a little bit more, but here you go. So then after I define two variables in here, I'm going to tell, I'm going to finish it up right here. I'm going to say the same thing like we did square brackets before. Now I'm going to say you're just going to be X and Y. Essentially, it's the same thing as putting that in there, but we kind of just gave variables and we plugged them up here. So that's another way of doing the same thing. We're getting the same result. Instead of that, we can say 0. And essentially, it's the exact same thing. There's our value over there moving. All right, so that's another one. So make sure you're aware of the fact that you're working with a two-dimensional property or one-dimensional property. So that's important when you work with the expressions. And let's see. How are we doing? I'm going to check back on you guys. We're doing okay? Yeah, we're going to leave. Sounds like Vlad said, my twin brother said that we're going to keep the, I guess, the stream for a while. I'm not sure when we're going to stop it, but all right, everyone's okay. So if it has 3 properties, that's a great question. Okay, well, yeah, the Ukrainian over there pretty much answered it, but the same thing. For example, we have, I'm going to turn this on. So it's a 3-dimensional property. So obviously this will work, but you would just say Z, and you can say whatever number. I'm going to leave it at 0, or it could be anything. And then here you can say X, Y, Z. So it's the same thing. It's pretty easy. I hope that answered your question. I showed you basically what he said. Oh, you're talking about index. Yeah, index would be, index would be 2. So it'd be 0, 1, 2. So if you're calling something, and by the way, let me explain an array or array, whatever it's called, man, I'm terrible. All right, so in here, I'm gonna go back to the text. So in here, I'm gonna just, basically an array is basically like a list. Come on. I can never get this thing right. All right, there you go. And I'm going to give like a variable. I'm going to say X, you're going to equal to, and in the square brackets, I'm going to say, so if it has quotation, if a value has a quotation, then that means it's a text. So JavaScript expression sees it as a text. And that way it doesn't confuse it, for example, because true actually means something. Well, obviously you have to have like something, but like if else statement, certain words mean something, but those are keywords. But obviously when you put things in quotations like Sergey, it will just assume it's text. Well, I know why I'm getting errors, because I'm in scale. I need to be in source. There you go. All right, let me do this over again. Right now, Sergey. But if I just say Sergey, it's going to give me an error. True. Say true is going to be fine because it's a keyword. But certain words, it's going to try to, it basically, when you type something without quotation, it thinks it's a keyword or a reserved word. And you can get in trouble. So, but I was going with this. So hold on, I kind of lost track here. Where was I going with this? Can someone remind me now? Jeff, welcome. Fabricio Silva. Okay. So, oh, I know where I was going. Okay, X equals an array. Okay, so we're basically, it's a list, right? And if a lot of times if you see square brackets, it's an array. Basically it's a list of things. So you're saying like just random numbers. I'm going to say 5, comma. It can be a string. I'll say, who else? Jeff. I'm going to put Jeff's name in there. Then I'm going to put somebody else's. Gabrielle. Okay. Just basically, I'm making a list of different stuff. I'm going to put media. And let's do a few more, like 30, 50, 100. So we have all these things in here, x. So essentially what we were talking about here before, like a position, for example, it's an index 0 and then 1. So the same thing here. Like if I want the index of this x, let's say I want this one right here. Let's do Euclidean. So that's a 1, 2, 3, 4. So it starts at 0, 0, 1, 2, 3. So it'd be index 3. And so in the square brackets, we're calling 3 index 3. So it'd be the same thing. And as you can see, there's Euclidean. If I do index 2, we'll see Gabrielle, or I'm not sure how to pronounce that right, but that's what you would get. So that's how it works. So it doesn't matter how many you have. That's what it's going to do. So I hope that makes sense. Clear as mud. We're good. Euclidean. All right. So how are we doing? Frame number. I'm just going to keep going. Sean, I'm going to look at that here in a second. It's a lot of reading. All right. So as far as what I'm talking about here, I think everyone's on track here. We're getting it. So anyway, I think I'm going to move on to the second one. So we talked about the two-dimensional properties, and we talked about arrays. Basically, here's the thing. So square brackets is important, and it's so tempting. I know I do that all the time. Use either, let's say I want to, I'm going to do back to, let's go back to two-dimensional stuff. So if you want to set like this one to 200, you would type 200 and then comma, and then this one to 100. So normally you want to do it this way, but obviously it's not correct. And then you're like, oh, I need to put in parentheses. So you try to put in parentheses, and then that's not correct because it's not an array. So you have to use square brackets. Just I want to make sure I drill that home. Make sure you use square brackets, and then it's going to work out. All right, I think we're good here. I am learning English. Gotcha. Okay, Sean. I got you. See what you're doing. All right, we're good. So I'm going to move on to the I think I have a few more and I'm done. All right, breaking strings. So we kind of learned what strings are. And strings is like a fancy, I guess like a coding word for text. I know I don't know why they're just not going to use text, but I guess it means something. So again, if it's in quotation, it's text. So you can say Sergey, and you're going to see, well, I'm in position. That's why I'm not seeing it. Make sure you go to source. All right, source. Now you're going to see it. And if it's not in quotations, you're going to get an error. Okay, so we get the whole string thing. And a lot of times you put strings in variables, and it can be a lot of text. It can be this, like this is just a test, blah blah, so on. You get the idea. But sometimes it's so long and you need to break it. So naturally you just want to hit enter and break it that way, and it's going to give you an error. So you do have to be mindful of that. The best way to do it is obviously here, but sometimes that's not what she wants. That works. So if you do need to break it halfway here, the best way to do it is adding right here to the last one /. I think it is forward. If it's leaning to the left, it's forward, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it is. And when you do that, it keeps it all together and it works. So just remember, adding that is important. Okay, we're doing okay. Gotcha. String of character variables, yes. More about best ways of organizing prepping module. It's a long subject. I don't know if I'll get into that. All right, man. Well, good. Andres, correct me. How to pronounce your name, man? I've seen it so many times, and I'm weird at pronouncing it. I always call you Andre. Dave. /. Okay, it's / then. I get those two confused. Yeah, I get those confused. Sorry, guys. Hey, thanks for /. Okay, gotcha. See, that's why I asked. You guys are a bunch of geniuses. Appreciate it. Okay, and let's go to the very last one. Then we'll kind of do Q&A. We'll talk about some stuff, and you guys can ask questions. All right, misplacing semicolon. So, for example, this one is let's do like a good old if statement. No, I don't want that. No. Sorry. Okay. 1 second, guys. I'm good now. All right. Need to use a shortcut for that. All right, so we got this, and I'm going to do source text here and then bring up a rotation for the property just so we have something to play with. Bring this up, and I can say if inside here, if rotation, obviously it's pointing to rotation, is less than, then I want it to say 45 or less than 45. I don't know, something. Trying to come up with some stuff. I wanted to say this. So obviously I put it in the string, so you can tell I'm telling expression, don't think it's a number, it's a text. Even though it's a number, it's a text. So that's why I put it in the string. We just talked about this. And then you say else, say, I don't know, just say Sergey or something. I don't know. All right. So right now it is less than 45. So we're seeing less than 45. But if we take that up, higher than 45, we get Sergey. So that works fine, but a lot of times you want to hit space here to kind of make it look more clean, I guess. And the tendency is always to kind of end your sentences with a semicolon. So like this, right? And when you do that, it's going to break things. So sometimes you'll search through code and you're like, what was that? Why am I getting this error? Like, how can I fix this? And you look through all kinds of code. You'll be like analyzing things, and it's that stupid thing in here. I've been there, I've done that before. So try to be mindful of that as well. It's a habit for me to always end it with a semicolon like this. So yeah, that's probably my last one. Yep. So those are just like kind of, I think it was 10 altogether. Those are some of the things I went through to kind of share with you, things that gave me a lot of headache, and I just want to share it with you guys. So any questions so far? Any questions, requests, whatever, this is the time for it. So let me look over here. All right, 1 second. Okay, how are we doing here, guys? Yeah, well, I can't remember what ActionScript was. Is it JavaScript? I'm not sure if it is. It probably is based from JavaScript. Azar. All right, cool. Is there a way to refer to the last layer of a comp? That's a good one. You would probably do like what minus. So in the scripting world, you would normally like you'd get the number of the. Yeah, that's a good one. In the scripting world, you can access the amount of layers in the composition, but I don't think you can in the expression world. So I don't think you can. Maybe length. Hold on. So this comp. Well, no. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think. I know in the scripting you can do that. Well, num items, but wouldn't that be in the scripting world? I've never tried it in the expressions. Joel, you work it out and let me know if you figured it out. Fabricio Silva. Hey, bro, I'm learning English, but I like your videos. Nice. Hey, I'm learning English too. English, man, I struggle with it. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not the best at it, especially evening time, man. I kind of tend to forget it a bit. Well, index -1. Well, what he's talking about is like, can you get the amount of? So what you need to do in the scripting world would be like, how many layers are in this comp? 1. So then take the length of it -1. But I don't think there's a way to say how many layers in this comp. I could be wrong. So Joel, sounds like you got the background for it. So if you need to use many shorten expressions or just use many. Well, else if there's also another way of doing. Hold on a second. Let me look it up. It's actually part of the course. I have to go in the outline. Yeah, I mean, if else is not the only way to go about it. That's what I'm trying to say. Un momento. So so you can also use what's called switch statements. And I probably shouldn't go over that. Yeah, it's probably a topic for another day. You can use switch statements. Look it up if you have time, and use it instead of else if. Index function. Yes, Sergio. Sergio, I think it will be out for some time. I don't know how long. Again, we want to encourage people to kind of tune into these live streams. So if we make it available, uh, I guess forever, then no one's gonna tune in. I'm gonna talk to crickets. Yeah, it is. It's I mean, but you can use multiple ones. I'm pretty sure. It's something that a lot of I've never seen anybody use switch statements in After Effects. Well, yeah, else if. To be honest, I don't use it that much. I just know I've used it a few times, and I'm pretty sure you can do else if. Look it up. It's a JavaScript based, obviously. And here's the thing about JavaScript, or just in general, like you notice with me, like as long as you understand the way things are structured, you don't have to know it all. Like I look things up all the time. Like I, like it's not uncommon. It's not a to look things up, how things work. But the key, and honestly, that's what I'm going to do with this course, is for you to get the basics. Once you understand the basics, once you understand how things are structured, and things of that nature, and I'll include a lot of resources that I go to for references. So just so you know, it's not all about knowing everything. It's just knowing where to go to find it. I mean, honestly, that's what it is. Sergey, thank you. Yeah, you do have many cases, Joel. Joel, what's your background? Sounds like you got some JavaScript background. See, I'm not a coder. I'm gonna tell you that right now. I learned Java expressions while doing real world projects at Fox Sports. So I kind of learned it in After Effects. It wasn't until like recently I had to actually go and learn it outside of it. And I even then, like I only learned stuff that I need to learn for my kind of stuff. But I know a lot of you are coders, and I've picked up so much from a lot of you, like Tim Thiessen, Roland, and just a lot of people are into coding. It's so cool to see that. And a lot of times I'll show some stuff in After Effects, and coders will be like, "Yeah, I know this stuff. I can't believe you can use this in After Effects or that in After Effects." So they're always impressed what you can do. Yeah, Fabricio, see you, man. Thanks for tuning in. All right, I think a couple more minutes. Any more questions, and I'm gonna bounce. Same as you, but I write scripts and awesome. Yeah. So you're learning a lot as well, right? It's that it's not all about knowing everything. It's about going to the right source. It's about asking the right questions. I mean, to be honest with you, else if it depends on how you structure it. I'll have to, I might come back tomorrow and talk about switch. We might talk about switch statements. I'm pretty sure it's well, yeah, it's different. Certain cases you might want to use switch, but yeah, else if. Unfortunately, you have to work with what you got. Yeah, but yes, I have tried actually, Joel, and let me show you here. In fact, this thing is with designed with JSON file. I don't know if you're seeing this. You're delayed, so I'm assuming you're gonna see it here shortly. So let me see where right here, line graph, and I'm gonna reveal and explore. All right, so let me pull this up. So I have JSON file, and I'm going to show that in the course, how to create them, how to convert spreadsheets into this kind of stuff. But I created this one from scratch. I mean, you can just export a JSON, and basically it kind of works similar to like a object-based variables. I don't know what's the word. I can't think of it right now. but it's just a variable. You call, an array. So you basically call it out based on like a array. So 0, 1, 2, all that stuff. It's the same concept, nothing crazy. And the way I linked it up here with this graph, if you notice, I'm going to pull this up. Let me do 50%. Okay, so here's the graph. It's working. But the way I set it up, so all these numbers are looking at this JSON file. So if I were to, let me bring this up again. Where did it go? There it is. So if I were to change stuff in here, like let's get rid of some of these numbers. So let me save this just in case. So I'm going to take 1, 2, 3, 4 of them off, and like 4 of these. So it's much quicker, like if you have a lot of graphs and stuff. And I'm going to go over that in the course as well. So if you do this and hit save, as soon as you go back to After Effects, it'll adjust. So you can see everything's adjusted. Everything's nice looking. I did show a lot of that yesterday. So I guess you didn't see that, Joel. I don't know if you were here. But essentially, that's what JSON files are. You can quickly access them. And the cool thing about this, like right now, it's based on Elijah stats. So if I go back to JSON file right here, where did it go? 1 second. Here it is. You can see that I'm pulling Elijah stats, but I rigged it in a way to where I can say Natalie or Carrie in here. Okay, let's do Carrie. And when I do that, it's going to switch to Carrie stats. And then I can do Natalie. So Natalie, in the same way, it does that. And the cool thing about this, you can actually duplicate this. So it gives you an error. So you can say Carrie. And by the way, I'm going to show all this in the course. Inside this here, you can change it to different color. You don't see that, but here it is. So I'm going to change it to something else like this. So now you're seeing a different color. And you can also say animation offset, check that, and say offset base of this line. So now, actually, in no time, you have 2 dot animations. So you have the first one going, and then the second one offsetting. So you have some controls in here that I set up, pseudo controls. You have all this stuff. So I'm going to go over that stuff in the course as well. So I'm going to show you how to set things up, how to make sense of all this stuff. It seems complex, but it really isn't. If you just look at the basics, you'll get it right away. And I mean, you can duplicate more and do the same thing. And the cool thing about this, you can actually go to dots here and tell it to be a square. And they can be a square, the size, all this stuff that I will show how to set up in the course. So again, if you keep an eye out for this, if you want to learn more about expressions, and I'm going to teach it in the most practical way. I know it's complicated. They used a lot. What confused me was all the nerdy language people used to explain it. Honestly, I just kind of will simplify things for you so you can get it much, much better. So I hope this made sense. How to your overview with very long expressions. And that's something I'm going to go in the course. You're just going to have to wait. It's there's a few ways you can go about it. You can actually use JSON file for variables. So a lot of times expressions are, you're talking about like, I use something else. Like I access the text, long text with many expressions, for example. I don't know how to explain. Maybe I'm probably getting in trouble over here, but a lot of times I use a thing called evaluate, so eval. So hold on, let me get rid of this rotation. Sorry about that. All right, you guys are still there? Also, sorry I wasn't. Yeah, Joe, no problem, man. Like we went over that. I just want to repeat myself for everybody else. For long expressions, you can do just type stuff here. For example, you can do, let's do Sergey. Yeah, all caps are on. There you go. And then you can do like, I don't know, 5 or something like that. Then Carrie 6 and just X 4, something like that, right? So a lot of times you can do this. Let me justify it right. Where the heck is paragraph? There you go. All right, so we have this expression. So a lot of times I'll just write it out in text. If it's super long, all these variables, expressions. In fact, I did it in here. If you notice, where is it? This right here, points. If you turn that on, you can see that I used a for loop here. to generate this that I plugged in the. So it's kind of complex, but I used it here and I plugged it in the expression. So am I losing you guys? I think I might be going in the dangerous territory. So, but a lot of times, for example, in the rotation here, instead of typing those, you would probably just like link up to here and say name. Eval. So you put eval in there, and basically it converts that into. So essentially, everything, all the variables you would type in here, you can refer to in this property. So you can say, give me Sergey, and it will give me 5. But I'm just typing them here, and obviously I'm messing with the rotation here. Hold on. I'm messing with the rotation of that property, but you get the idea. So if your variables or your expression becomes so big, you would just put them in text like that. That's what I do. It's a workaround. Clear as mud. I know I'm complicating stuff, but anyway, yep, that's exactly. Joe, looks like you're ahead of a lot of people. That's good, man. Yep. Joel, you're following. Okay. I probably lost some of you guys, but don't you worry. I will get a lot of that cleared out for you. And I think you'll enjoy the course. So definitely keep an eye out for it. And again, it's just to remind you, it's not going to be free, but we do reward loyalty. We're going to make sure you get the best price and the beginning. So if you're going to wait till it goes on sale, it's not going to happen. We're going to reward loyalty, whoever signs up first. So we're going to have opportunities for you guys to save money. And I hate to charge for stuff, but I have quit Fox Sports to pursue my own dream, kind of, so I have to kind of now charge for some things, but I'll still keep a lot of stuff free like this right now. If I got to pay the bills. So I apologize. I hate to charge for stuff, but I'm sorry. That's all. I'm going to leave it at that. But any more questions? Русский. Да, я не русский, я из Украины, украинец. Родился в Украине. Sorry. I'm speaking Russianish, Ukrainian. Any more questions? We're good? Yeah, Sean, After Effects. It's like a lot of times it's like with After Effects coding is you have to kind of fake stuff. So, or it seems like it. I'm always feeling like, how can I get away with this? And it's not like a certain way of doing things. It's just, I got the job done. Awesome. Let's move on. Okay, I think it's probably time to call it quits. I'll wait for 1 more minute or so for any other questions. I think you guys are good. I hope I didn't confuse you with this other stuff, but I just wanted to let you know that the course is coming out soon, March 1st, and then April 16th, our birthday, is when we're thinking about launching it. So hopefully everything goes according to plan and things will go smoothly and we can launch it then. In what city of Ukraine were you born in? I was actually born in Kiev, Ukraine, and Darnitsky Rayon. I was 12 years old when I moved from Ukraine, so my Russian is, not so good. I have an American wife, so I speak English all day long with my kids, with my wife. Да, я понимаю по-русски. Я хорошо понимаю. Трудно говорить, но понимаю все. How many of you are from Russia? Is there a list of the contents? Yes, there is kind of. I'm still finalizing it, but I'm working with this workflowy kind of stuff, and I'm gonna maybe show you some of it. I kind of have like a list right here, like. So I'm not gonna show you a whole thing yet because I'm still working on it, but I do have a working list that I'm working on. The same question 3 times and you skipped it. So what was the question? I'm so sorry. This is cool. Yeah, I think this is cool too. I'm from Cherkasy. I've been there before. I used to play soccer for a club in Ukraine when I was 11 or 10 called Vashod. And we played Dynamo Kiev. We played Dynamo. We played different teams. And I remember traveling to all kinds of places and playing. So, all right. Where did you learn after AE scripting? Is there different, really different? The it is well, After Effects and expressions. You have to think of it as how do we like? It's just an add-on. It's like a tool, like just like a pen tool or I don't know, text tool or so. It's just you don't have to know it. Honestly, you don't have to know it. You can live without it. I've lived without it for many years. I know many people live without it for years. We just some that go only know basics and they're totally fine. But I'm trying to show you that with the expressions, you can simplify things. You can make things, for example, just like like this graph for or modular third that I was showing you guys. Like if you keyframe stuff, sometimes it makes sense to keyframes to use keyframes or keyframe stuff, but sometimes it makes sense to do expressions. Always the best way. Expressions are not always something you should always do, but it certainly helps you with, especially like when I work for Fox Sports, I would automate stuff for them. Let's say we finished up Major League Baseball package, and then I would automate everything like the bumpers and stuff for different teams to where you would just do drop menu and select Yankees and everything adjusts, like colors and everything, logo. I mean, can you imagine if you had to do that by hand, go to each comp and change logos and the text and colors and all that stuff? But with the expressions, you literally can create your own options. I mean, it's a valued skill. If you want to move up in the After Effects, I think you should consider it. But where did you learn AE scripting? Well, I just learned through a friend called Google, and I just went around and asked the right questions. And so I'm compiling everything I've learned in a sense that I think like the things I struggled with, and I'm going to do it in the course so you can avoid a lot of the stuff that I had to take on, and hopefully it's going to make a lot more sense for you. So I hope that makes sense. So don't worry about starting from scratch. I will give you a lot of the, I mean, you can go and search for stuff, but I think I'll be able to help you by avoiding a lot of those corners. Okay, so what do we have? I don't understand that Spanish. Is that Spanish? All right, what else? So you want to go to script? Oh, you're talking about scripting. So there are different sites you can go to learn scripting. I mean, I need to combine a list. So it's all over the place. I mean, you have to learn JavaScript if you want to do scripting. I mean, there's just no two ways about it. I mean, you do a lot of functions, a lot of that stuff. So just learn JavaScript, I guess. But there are certain sites that teach like bits and pieces. I know AE enhancers or whatever it's called. There's a lot of stuff there. But overall, it's just pieces. Here and there, you kind of have to figure things out. All right, Joel. Run faster. Honestly, Joel, that's one thing that I like. For example, even this thing right here that I did. Let me turn this off. Points. So you notice that this thing does require some buffering. I mean, obviously it already buffered, but it still takes some time to get going. But I notice what slows it down is when you use index. Like when you do index -1, index +1, that thing chugs, it slows you down so much. So if you can avoid using those, but when you point to things, I think that's fine, pointing to stuff. But there comes a time, and I know people are like, I want to do complex expressions. I don't know. I don't know if you want to do that because there's certain plugins that, for example, you're not going to create a particle system. Why don't you just use particular? Or there's a cap to where it doesn't make sense anymore to use expressions. I hope that makes sense. And I feel like people want to push it. And why do that when you just can use like a plugin or a script so there's certain things they're good for, but I agree with you. It does slow you down if you use too much expressions, especially if you have generating stuff like, just something that generates, it has to think a lot. And those indexes, man, they can get you. So the tips, I would say, use less. Again, sometimes it makes sense to use keyframes instead of expressions. All right, guys. Hey, thank you so much. Okay. Awesome. Azar, I hope so. Man, my whole point of this is just to make it simple for you guys. And I'm really passionate about expressions. And again, I'm not a coder. Honestly, this whole nerdy math terms, I mean, that turns me off. And that's why I'm making this course to kind of break it down in my simple, which is English. And hopefully it will make sense for you. I do have a simple mind, and I feel like I can do a good job explaining something that's complex, especially if I get it. If I get it, I feel like I can do a good job explaining it to someone who's as simple as me. And when you listen to people that teach coding and stuff, it gives me a headache. I feel like it's a secret society, and they purposely use those words to kind of kind of like complicate you, or I don't know. And I'm kidding, but it does feel like that. So, and that's the whole course of this, or the whole point of this course is just to simplify things for you. That's why it says After Effects expressions in simple English. So again, I don't want to keep talking about it, but that's my goal with it, though. I want to make it simple for you and to show you that it is fun. It doesn't have to be that complex. You don't have to know it all. Just like you don't have to have know it all to drive a car. You don't have to know the whole car or to play guitar. You just know a few chords and you're playing a music and you have you can have a song. But you can, once you understand the basics, you can learn, and it's a journey. And so hopefully I'll ignite that journey for you. Thank you, Jeff. Hey, Jeff, thank you so much for always being so supportive. You're like the number one fan for Euchre Media, man. I always, look forward to your comments and stuff, man. Jeff, I appreciate it, man. Very supportive, and I appreciate that. And again, Dave, the same for all of you guys. You guys are super great. You're the reason why I do this. I enjoy talking to you guys, and we're on this journey together. I'm not an expert, but I enjoy doing this, and I enjoy teaching. So, but again, if you're not a member of our mentoring group on Facebook, join euchremedia.com/community. And thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for talking. And I'm still surprised how many people still sticking around. I appreciate it. If you want to keep talking to a lot of us, you can go to euchremedia.com/community and join. I think you'd be surprised how many people there that we have there, and they're so knowledgeable in their industry. And you'll learn and network, which is good for you. You're the average of, what is it, 5 people you hang out with? So yeah. Well, yeah, I do have a simple mind. Trust me. I failed math well, I didn't like I was terrible at math. In fact, I was so terrible when I came out of high school. I took a whole year of developmental classes in community college. And I'm talking about taking classes that didn't even count towards college. I mean, I struggle with education, terrible with it. Then one day, just like something clicked. All of a sudden, I realized I'm not as dumb as I thought I was. And I realized, nobody's dumb. It's not necessarily the fact that I was dumb. It's just it wasn't as fun, or it wasn't brought up to me the right way. It didn't make sense to me, so people just gave up on me. And hopefully I won't do that to you guys, man. Anybody can learn this stuff. It doesn't matter if you're terrible at math. It doesn't matter if you're terrible at coding. You can do this. And if I can do it, someone who took a year of developmental classes, probably shouldn't brag about this one, but you can do it as well. All right, guys. Hey, thank you again. Have a good one, and join us on Facebook mentoring group. But hopefully we can do one tomorrow. If you have any topics you want me to talk about, just email me. You know how to reach me, and we'll talk about that. But until next time, my name is Sergey Prakhnevsky, and this is euchremedia.com.